Welcome to the Carquinez Village monthly speaker series. We have been doing this series for several years now, and previously, before the pandemic, we were hosted by the Benicia Public Library. Now, of course, we are on Zoom. Today, we have with us Brenda Joice Crawford. Brenda Joice Crawford has been working for social justice for over 5 decades. Born in Jackson, Mississippi, she is the daughter of sharecroppers. At the age of 7, she observed her grandfather being talked to by a white man as if he were a child. She never forgot the look of shame and anger on her grandfather's face as he walked away. She decided then to protect people from, quote, mean people. Brenda Crawford has continually fought against racism, sexism, homophobia, and classism. A great deal of her career has been spent promoting values-based leadership in order to create safe and welcoming environments where the richness of the information that resides within all communities can emerge and be appreciated and included in the planning or change processes. She has worked with such groups as Mental Health Consumer Concerns and Progressive Research and Planning for Aging. Progressive Research and Planning for Action, and has won numerous awards for her community work and her work supporting those with experiences of alcohol and substance abuse, including the California Legislature Assembly Certificate of Recognition for Frontline Work and Certificates of Recognition and Appreciation from Congresswoman Barbara Lee and U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer. Brenda lives in Vallejo, where she continues her social activism. She serves on the Advisory Council for the Napa Solano Area Agency on Aging. Additionally, she supports cannabis education for seniors and seeks to break the stigma associated with medical cannabis and aging through her organization, Senior Can. And now let us hear from Brenda Joice Crawford.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. As I get older, I'm not quite as vain as I was as a young woman, but there are some limits that I just refuse to cross. And so since I had dental surgery a couple of days ago, that's why you are seeing my picture instead of my face. But I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be of service and to be with you this morning. You know, I've thought a lot about this presentation since I was asked to come and speak with you all, and thought a lot about what is the message that I want to give today. And the title of my talk, From Mississippi to Vallejo, is fairly telling because it really does chronicle my life. I was born in Mississippi, as you were just told, and I was born in a house that my grandfather built. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with these kind of houses, but in the South, we have a model of a house that we call a shotgun model. And that means that you can see from the front of the house into the back of the house. It's like a straight shoot. And that's why they call it a shotgun house. Anyway, I was born in the house that my grandfather built. I come from working class, poor background. My grandfather was a union man. He worked on the Illinois Southern Railroad for many years, laying track. And then later on, he went and worked for General Motors and was very active in the United Auto Workers Union. So I'm a union person as well, and have been a lifelong Democrat, and still am today. One of the things that I thought about this morning when I was thinking about my talk, why Black Lives Matter, and particularly why Black older lives matter, or why Black folks who are seniors matter. We don't often talk about us. But, I was thinking this morning about all of the chronic health problems that Black seniors have, many of which I have as well: high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes. I was thinking that probably all of the chronic health diseases that are in the African American community are as a result of the cumulative aspect of racism on us. The stress that racism brings to Black folks also impacts our health, particularly if you're in your 70s or 80s and you've lived your whole life under the kind of racism that exists in this country, the kind of institutional and systemic racism. And that's what I want to talk about this morning. When we talk about Black Lives Matter, I heard a young woman who is a leader in that movement said that, Black Lives Matter isn't really about white people being nice to us. It really isn't. It really isn't about white folks sort of acknowledging their own biases. And that's a part of warriors to help work to change the system. Unless we do systemic changes, I don't know that we will have any impact on racism, because the system is designed to make sure that the ones who are in charge remain in charge. Thinking about Black seniors, I used to say to folks that a 73-year-old white woman was just as was I used to, I'm sorry, I'm sort of stumbling here, but I used to say that age was the great equalizer, that a 73-year-old Black woman was not, a 73-year-old white woman was not as valuable in terms of our value, that a age sort of helps us balance that out. That when I'm at 73, I may be valued a little less than you, but not by much. But I'm now changing that, because I think the coronavirus has shown that Black and brown seniors are not valued at all in this society, by the way in which we have been left just hanging without the kind of services we need to address the problem of the virus that is killing a large number of Black and brown seniors. I also think that Black and brown seniors suffer disproportionately from isolation as well, because a lot of our support comes from family members, and if the family member is not around, then the isolation gets greater. All of my work really is around social engagement, and really is around eliminating the barriers that keep us separate. I believe that the isms that we have, regardless of whatever isms they are, if it's sexism, racism, classism, whatever the isms are, they separate us from a state of health. And as long as we are practicing these isms, then we can never totally be healthy in a way that adds value to our lives and to our community at large. So my job has been to really work around eliminating isms. And along with that has been around opening doors and having greater access for people who have been shut out, primarily the LGBT community, and specifically Black LGBT folks, who are perhaps some of the most invisible people in the movement today. So a lot of my work has been around opening the doors and making sure that folks understand that as we get older, our needs change, and that we need to have systems in place that will address those needs. So how can you, as a white person, as an ally, help? This is how you can help. Whenever folks are talking about decreasing services to seniors, then you can just count on that the impact on Black seniors is going to be threefold if it's impacting white seniors. The impact is always going to be greater on us. So one of the things that will help is that if we all develop the kind of attitudes where we recognize that to reduce anything for one group of us reduces it by triple fold for other groups of us, and to work to make sure that we maintain the quality of services and health as we get older. The other thing is to reach out and do some community building. We're working in Vallejo. I'm going to be working with a group called MoveOn.org, and I know you all have heard of them. They started out with, I think it was with the impeachment of Bill Clinton, and folks got pretty tired of it, and they were just saying move on. And out of MoveOn.org, out of MoveOn came MoveOn.org. They have a wonderful program called Community Living Room Conversations that are designed to help people talk, to have small groups of people in the community choose a subject and just talk to each other in each other's living rooms, in coffee shops, wherever you can have these kind of engagements. And it's done wondrous things throughout the country. We have people in red states talking to folks who are in blue states. We have folks who are in the business of trying to convert folks who are lesbian and gay are now talking to folks around total acceptance around lesbian and gay folks. So the model is one that promotes community engagement and speaking from our heart. I really believe that the only way that we solve any of these problems that we have in the community is by engaging with each other and by having conversations that are designed to heal instead of conversations that are designed to push one's point across. My point is that we all have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as a Black senior, it becomes increasingly more important that you support me in that effort, because it becomes really difficult as I get older to access services for a variety of reasons. Among the primary reason is racism within service providing communities. And yes, that does exist. I just think that as we get older, if we use the wisdom and the experience that we have gotten as we've gone through life, to use it in ways that empowers our communities. I mean, one of the things that I always think about is that, Trump always asks Black people, what do you got to lose if you vote for him? Well, I have a long list of things I can tell him that I would lose if I voted for him. But, the thing that I'm always amazed with that comment. But the thing I say to seniors of different cultures is that, we are really too old to be caught up into any of the isms. Anything that separates us from a state of health cannot be good. And isms affect your emotional and your mental health. And that then goes into affecting your physical health. So with old seniors, I'm wondering, what do we have to lose in order to let our barriers down and sit down across the table from each other and have conversations with each other around how we can improve the quality of our lives and the quality of the community's lives as we move forward. Again, Black Lives Matters is about hoping to change the system that tells us every day that we do not matter. The system that leaves food deserts in our community, thereby adding to the chronic health diseases that we all suffer from. Systems that threaten to cut off Medicare for us. And for many of us who do not have supplemental policies, Medicare is our only source of medical services. So it may impact seniors who have more income than the seniors who don't, but that's an issue that is universal, that impacts all seniors. So if we can start to relate to each other around our universal needs, then we can get to the specific needs and to the needs that are a little bit more intimate and a little bit more scarier for us to talk about, like the issue of, well, how do you feel when you walk into a store and you see a young Black man? Do you raise your, or if you're in a parking lot and a young Black man walks by, do you close your windows? Do you lock your doors? Or do you say, hello, young man, how are you? We can have those kind of discussions and really feel comfortable if in fact we start to relate to each other from our human side, and to let go of all of the isms that we have gathered in our life, which are really things that just keep us, again, from a state of health. I'll stop now and just ask if there are some questions that people have. I hope that some of the things that I've said have been helpful to you. What I really would like for us to do to come out of this with is that we will all commit to be elder social justice warriors, that we will work for the improvement of the lives of all seniors, and that we make a personal commitment that if I don't know someone of a different culture or a different ethnicity, then I'm going to make a commitment that I'm going to sit down and find out about that person and learn about their culture and their history and where they came from. And I'm going to share with them my culture and history and where I came from as well. I think that when you're in your 60s and 70s and 80s, I really do believe those of us who have reached that point in our lives have a pivotal role to play in bringing peace and healing to our community that is in such pain. It is in such dire need of someone to bring healing and relief to us from all of the issues, the economic, physical health issues, spiritual and psychological issues that just seem to be so prevalent today. Again, I believe that one of the ways of dismissing and getting rid of the isms that separate us is by my reaching out to you and by your reaching out to me, and by us developing an allyship that will bring us together as social justice, elder social justice warriors. So again, I'll stop now and ask if there are any questions.
I see that Susan Street has a question in chat, and I'm going to unmute you, Susan, because there's not a whole lot of us, so you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. My daughter is working in a corporate situation where she is working to teach exactly what you're saying, Barbara, about white allies, and her she has discovered that not only can we speak out as white allies, but people often listen to us because we have more power. And so to discuss such a situation that you meet up in a store and see something that's happening wrong, or a political decision or whatever, it's our duty to speak up because we're going to be listened to. So what I'd like to know from you, Barbara, is that's a tall order. And I'm wondering where do you think it's best for us to use our voices? Should it be political? Should it be with friends and social group like this? Should it be just personal behavior, or a little, is it better to be more focused in one area, or spread it a little, spread it around everywhere a little bit?
Well, I think that wherever you are given the opportunity to reach out and learn something about a different person is where you should take advantage of that. I do believe that it is our white allies that are going to work with your community to bring about a greater understanding of what we really are talking about when we're talking about Black Lives Matter. We're talking about, we have not mattered to the system. We have mattered so little that the system has purposely designed ways that keep us out of the circle of influence, continues to cut resources in our community, continues to have us live in conditions that add to our chronic health problems. So, I think anytime you as a white ally can reach across the table to another white person or to whoever and start to talk about how all of these things impact us. Cut in food stamps impacts me as well as it impacts you. I may not be a recipient of food stamps, but I am a person who has compassion and wants to make sure that everybody has access to food. So just from that, I am going to be an activist and make sure that, you know, the folks who are in need of food stamps continue to get food stamps. The other thing, all of the free sort of physical health services that are around, to make sure that those continue, to make sure that at the senior centers we continue to get our blood pressure checked and our glucose levels or whatever it is that they're doing over there, but to make sure that that doesn't just happen in senior centers, that if there's a need, we go to where the need is. We go to the churches, we go to the basements, we go to the library, we go everywhere that we can go to reach across the aisle to make sure that people understand when I don't have something when you don't have something that impacts what I have as well, that we are one. I mean, we certainly have to start operating from that, or I'm so afraid of what will happen to us unless we start to embrace the fact that what happens to one of us impacts all of us, particularly seniors. Did I answer your question, or did I go off on a tangent, which I have a tendency to do? I see somebody with their hand up.
Yeah, that's me. There's two of us. My name is Sharon. I want to thank you. We met each other probably many dozens of years ago. But I wanted to just kind of build on what you were saying, and the question about, you know, when should white allies speak up? I think it's important to remember that, you know, we're not talking, that there's two kinds of things that people react to. One of them is this idea that, am I a good person? As a white ally, am I a good person? And I think the question of having interpersonal discussions and how white allies and Black folks and people of color relate to each other is one thing. You know, when you hear the racist jokes or the whatever, that it's important to speak up when those things happen. I think we also want to talk about the question of systemic racism. So if your daughter is working in a business that has, you know, that makes decisions and policies about who they work with, or who, you know, if it's an agency, who they approve for grants, or, you know, whatever the thing is, to look at the systemic impacts of their decisions. So even if everybody in the room, you know, is really nice people and, you know, has Black friends and, you know, whatever their personal feelings and interactions are like, we also have to look at the impact of the decisions that the organization makes. Those impacts are maybe different for white people than for Asian people, than for Black people. So the impacts of the decisions of the organization are important to consider too. So, you know, I'm just wanting to make clear that we're talking not only about personal interactions, but also about systemic impacts, and, you know, the decisions, redlining in a bank, for example. If the bank is making loans with criteria that may not say we're not going to loan to Black people, but instead they're going to say we're having these criteria for making a loan, and it happens that they affect Black people differently from white people, then that's important for the people who work in that bank to look at that and see what those decisions mean. So I hope I'm clear with that.
Want to say anything to that, Brenda?
Yeah, so I agree that systemic racism is important for us to take a look at as well. However, you know, I as I get older, I live by this motto, think nationally, but act locally. And so if there is something locally that I can do to impact systemic racism, then that is what I will do. But in terms of the kind of work that we as senior social justice warriors or advocates is the kind of work that it requires us to reach across the street to our neighbor. When I was working in Oakland, for a short period of time, I worked in Oakland. Well, not for a short period of time. For a short period of time, I was the chair of the City of Oakland's Commission on Aging. And during that time, we were over all of the senior centers that were in the city. And there was a senior center out in East Oakland, right out in the heart of East Oakland, where the demographics were changing. And it was more Latinos that were moving out there than Black folks. And the Black folks had been the ones who had established the center, but Latino folks, Black folks had died out, moved on there. And some of them had sold their houses, and the demographics were changing. Yet there was still this sense of ownership by African Americans of this center. And there was always this talk about, well, we don't want them to come in and take our food and take our services. It was always a them. And one of the things that we did was we created a program called Circles of Understanding. And those were where we would have monthly potlucks based on having the food from wherever the person came from who is a member of the center. So we had Mexican food, we had Ethiopian food, we had Asian food, we had all kinds of food that we would have at these circles of understanding. And one of the things that it did was it showed that there really isn't that much difference than growing up in the country in Mexico than it was in growing up in the Delta of Mississippi. Poverty is poverty. In Mexico, the language was different, but the effects of the poverty and the effects of not having access to the kind of services that would improve one's life was the same. And I was able to relate to folks based on that. And we were able to decrease some of the separate, people staying separate and this misguided sense of ownership. And we were able to bring communities together just by having what we call circles of understanding. And, I've often promoted those kinds of little things that can be done in communities. Don't cost a lot of money. Are social events. People may not think they have that much impact, but you get a couple of folks together across a meal and have a discussion around where you came from and how you developed your own learning or your own values, where they came from. You'd be amazed at the kind of healing that occurs in those small circles.
Okay, thank you. And Judy Donaldson had a question in chat, and then Janice Magner had raised her hand. So Judy, let's go ahead with your question that you had in chat. Unmute yourself. I just asked to unmute. Judy, can you hear me?
She wants to know how she can make contact to explore the possibility of setting up the community living room conversation. Is that what you want, Judy?
I'm trying to unmute her, and Judy, can you hear me? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you. I was trying to unmute you. And it wasn't working. Thanks.
So Brenda, that's my question. I think that's wonderful. And I like you're talking about the circles that you created.
Right. So Joan Blaze, who is the co-founder of MoveOn.org in Berkeley, is someone that I know and that I've worked with in the past. In fact, we got a couple of really dysfunctional county departments working together as a result of these living room conversations.
Right.
So we can get in touch with her, moveon.org, and just go to their website,
Okay.
Community Living Room Conversations.
Yeah.
If you it would be wonderful to have conversations in Benicia and Vallejo. It would be wonderful to have these conversations all throughout the county, actually. But since we are right next to each other, it'd be great to have Benicia, Vallejo conversations on a variety of issues. How can we eliminate the barriers that separate us? Have to say to y'all that I've encountered racism right over in your little old town of Benicia. So,
Right.
it's not that we're that far away and that you don't have those issues yourself. I was in a store in Benicia once and was just walking around and felt like the woman who was walking behind me, if she had gotten any closer, I was going to ask her, did she want to get married? I could tell that she was walking behind me because she didn't know me and that she obviously thought that I was there to do something that would cause her some harm or to lose money. But anyway, I mean, those kinds of things happen all the time to Black folks. And it doesn't matter how old you are. So if we can decrease that kind of thing in a little way, to me, that adds to the overall sense of healing that that the country needs to go through, and that it also eliminates the kind of barriers that we establish that keep us separate.
I just want to also say I loved your concept of an elder social justice warrior. Yes, that's wonderful.
I do too. So Judy, if you like that, at the end of my presentation, I have a pledge that I want us all to take. If you're into being a social justice warrior, the elder social justice warrior, then I'm going to give you a pledge, my sister.
Great, I'm with you.
It's great.
And Janice, you had your hand up before. You have a question.
I do. Brenda, this is sort of an opposite thing. I have a daughter who works in a system that the administration is Black and she's white, and she's the only white person. She was only white person in the system, in the administration system, and she was very discriminated against. And she was there for quite a long time, and they finally managed to push her out. So what I'm suggesting is that the conversation needs to go both ways, in terms of Black people, when we get together with white people, to both exchange how they feel and how they can reconcile, rather than pouring out their anger.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the circumstances were, but I do know that, oftentimes when we find ourselves in situations and dealing with other cultures, because of the kind of separateness that we value in this country, it makes it difficult for us to have conversations sometimes. So I would agree that the conversation is not just one way. It needs to be two-way. I would agree with that. In fact, that is the only way that I think that we're going to come together as a community to really start to look at what separateness does for us. Who does it serve? It doesn't serve us. Who does it serve that we're separate and at odds with each other? Doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
It serves folks who have more money and more power and who have a different color and who are a different gender than me. So, when I think about what we need to do, I would agree with you that the conversation needs to be both ways.
Yeah. I think that's the only way we're really going to make change.
Yeah, I agree. Do we have any other questions?
Anything else from anybody? Oh, Judy has another question.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of the isms, Brenda. So let's just talk about ageism.
Okay.
And, I think I don't trust myself in speaking up at times because there is a base of annoyance, if not anger. So how do you deal with that? with the isms. I know that I hear what you're saying, and I like what you're saying, is that we start local and we try to build conversations to understand one another. And maybe that's just the answer that it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that folks really understand the impact of ageism, and how deadly it is on us. As we are getting older, I'll talk about me. As I get older, my physical health changes, my my sort of passion has changed. It's taken on a different form. It sort of was so hot at some point that it would burn me and everything that was in my past. It cannot be that hot anymore because of age. And I just think that when we talk about ageism, we really need to understand that the little jokes and that old people have been marginalized in this country in ways that are just outrageous. I can't even think of words. Where in the past we were valued and our wisdom was appreciated, it seems, along with the virus, the coronavirus, that it has even put us in a position of being not appreciated at all for the skills and talents that we bring. It seems as though old people are disposable in this country today. And I think that we need to stand up and say, no, I'm not ready to go, and I'm not going to go anywhere. And this is what I want, and this is what I demand. There are organizations like the Elder Justice Coalition that is full of radical seniors who are now 60 and 70s, and they were the people who were in the streets when they were in their 20s and 30s. Let's hang out with some of those folks. Let's not give it up until, we take our last breath. This one, I will stop fighting when I take my last breath. So I think the way we fight has to change, certainly because, our lives are changing as we get older, but I don't think that the fight needs to be ever given up. I think once we stop fighting for the dignity and respect that all seniors deserve, we've worked our whole lives. We do not need to go in with our hands held out as though we are beggars. We demand to be respected because we've worked for it. We made this country, so we demand it. And I'll get off my soapbox.
I have another question.
Could I just let Gail go because she
Oh,
hasn't had a chance yet? Thanks.
Hi. So this is a great conversation, and building community is a huge part of it. But I was wondering, with some of the things in the news, like thoughtful and good reform to police departments, as well as voting rights and equal education, as well as resources to neighborhoods, if you have any suggestions as to good first or maybe even second steps that we can take as activists to actually promote change in those areas.
Well, I don't know about Benicia, but I do know that in Vallejo, there's a new crop of emerging social justice activists, young crop of folks. And as you all know who live anywhere close to the city, we are in crisis here as a result of the citizens violence and the police violence that's happening. So there's lots of us who are running around the city talking about police reform. And again, I think that those kinds of things can happen either on the larger sort of citywide planning, anti-violence kind of campaign, or they can happen in conversations in people's living rooms where we're talking about what is it that we need to do to make sure that our police treats everyone the same, and to talk about that kind of thing by going down to the city council meetings and bringing it up there as well, or joining organized groups that have been set up to deal with this. In Vallejo, we're blessed in lots of ways. We're cursed because of all of the issues we have in this town, but we're blessed because we have groups that anytime an issue comes up, somebody else will develop a group. We're kind of like what they said happened in AA. When somebody got mad, they went and got a coffee pot and set it up in a different room, and that was a new AA meeting. Well, that's kind of what we do in Vallejo. If there's an issue and somebody gets mad, then they start a group. So we have tons of groups here. At some point, we're all going to have to start working together, but we'll figure that out as we go along. But I just think that dealing with social change wherever you can and however you can is always the right thing to do. Doesn't matter whether it's in a formal context or if it's a cup of coffee with a friend. As long as it's about promoting change and full access, then it's impactful, I think.
Thank you.
And Judy, you had another question.
Well, I was thinking, as we're all sitting here, Brenda, that it's my sense that a lot of people don't know that we have this thing called the Senior Coalition in Solano County. And I wondered if you could just briefly explain what it is.
Right. So, I used to be, I'm sorry that was sent out incorrect. I used to be on the Senior Coalition. I'm now just on the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Board. Our elected official, my supervisor, thought it was too much for me to be on both boards. She was concerned about my health, and so she wanted me off of one board. Now, if you believe that, there's some lakefront land I have down in the desert I'll sell you as well. I think what happened was that my voice was a little too loud, and it can only be, and hearing it in the advisory board is one thing, but hearing it in two places was a bit much for our policymakers. So I was kicked off of the Senior Coalition, okay? I was told that I had to make a choice between the Senior Coalition and the Area Agency on Aging, so I chose the Area Agency on Aging. But the Senior Coalition is a really wonderful group of seniors who have been appointed by the Board of Supervisors in their towns, and some have been appointed by the mayor and the city councils of their town as well. And it is a group of people who get together and talk about policies as it relates to seniors in Solano County, and works to make sure that all seniors have equal access and are provided the kind of services that they need as they age. The Area Agency on Aging is a group that is just now starting to come around after a couple of years of being dysfunctional. In the last year, since it's been reorganized, it's been a lot more productive and a lot more impactful in terms of the services that they are providing for seniors. But they can do more too. We can do more. I'm a part of them. We could do more. For example, I wonder what the Area Agency on Aging's plan is around all of the seniors who live in Marina Towers. Those are the folks that I worry about. The folks who are in these low-income senior housing without access to services. When we had the fires and we had the power cut off by PG&E last year, I think it was, that high rise is, I think it's 14 stories high, and seniors were there without an elevator for days, not being able to get out of that building, although there were folks who were going in and providing services. But the low-income seniors and seniors who are of the different economic class have some of the same issues as seniors who have no financial resources. And it's all about access, and it's all about making sure that as we age, our needs are met, regardless of where we're living. I'm a big one for shared housing as well. And I don't know that we really are have taken that. The fastest growing population that's homeless in Solano County are people who are over 55. Did we know that? I mean, and there's not a lot of work being done around senior homelessness, yet we have people who are in wheelchairs sitting on our corners, at least in Vallejo, with signs, "Can you help? I'm broke. I'm homeless, you know, and that's a person who I'm assuming has worked most of their lives and had no idea that they would end up on the corner of Tuolumne and Redwood with a sign in their 60s or 70s. So we just need to make sure that the county and all of the groups that are around to provide services, that they're doing their jobs, you know, and make sure that folks who are in need of those services have information about how to get them. So how many senior social justice warriors do we have in the house? How many folks want to sign up to be a senior social justice warrior? Come on. My sister here, who I recognize your face, but I don't remember your name, but I do recognize your face, Judith. So all y'all want to be social justice warrior? Okay, so you ready to take the pledge? All right, so let me just pull it up right now.
The pledge.
So what this really means is that you are pledging to go an extra mile. You are pledging to reach out across and talk to someone or have contact with someone that may not be of your culture, may not be of your ethnicity, that you don't know, that you are going to do your work to reach out and sort of bridge the gap. And I think that if we as seniors start bridging the gaps within our communities, then it can't help but have an impact on the rest of the community. You know, old folks always start out and old folks always know what's best. At least that's what my mother told me. Story about why I use my whole name, Brenda Joice Crawford, is that those of you who were born in the South and know about moms coming to the front door and yelling your name. Well, when I was a kid growing up and playing out in the street, my mother could call me Brenda, and I would not respond. But when she would call my whole name, then I knew she was serious, and I knew it was time for me to get in the house, because if I didn't, the belt was going to come out. So that is one of the reasons that I still today use my whole name. My mom says that people use their whole name when they want folks to take them seriously. So that came from her, so I believe her, and so that's how come I use it. So I'm pulling up the draft. Okay, so everybody ready to take the pledge? So okay, everybody repeat after me. I commit to lifelong intensive training and courageous conversations about race. Did I hear you say that? I commit to lifelong intensive training and to have courageous conversations about race. Great. Another one, I agreed to develop a deeper consciousness and a more expansive literacy about the impact of race in my personal life. I am going to examine the impact of race in my personal life. I commit to doing that. And last, I commit to act as an agent of change to deinstitutionalize racism, eliminate racial disparities, and build on work of previous and current courageous activists. That's a lot of words, so let me say it over again, so y'all know what you're committing to. Okay, I commit to act as an agent of change. Do you commit to act as that? Everybody commit to act as an agent of change. As a senior social justice warrior, we are committing to act as agents of change. Is that correct? All right. And we are committing to act in ways that will deal with institutional racism and eliminate racial disparities. That is my goal, to deal with institutional racism the way my sister was talking about, systemic racism, and work toward the elimination of racial disparities. We can do this, y'all. You can do this just by inviting somebody to coffee. You know, you don't have to have a whole big parade around it. All we have to do is just act in our personal lives, have these as our personal values. And so as social justice activists, we are committing to eliminating the kind of disparities that impact aging folks in Solano County by any means necessary. Is that correct? Can I get an amen? All right. Well, I want to thank you all so very, very much for having me today. And I hope that some of the things I said was helpful. I sort of stumbled in the beginning. That's because I had not had my second cup of coffee yet, which I had during this presentation. But I'm so very grateful and honored that you all thought enough of me to want to hear what I have to say. And you know, I'm working with a ghostwriter. Been working with this person for about a year now, and we're trying to write a book about my life. And so we were talking one day, and she asked me, "What is it that you really are trying to do?" And the thing that I thought of is that, you know, I'm just an old black dyke trying to make it to heaven. That's all I am, just an old black dyke trying to make it to heaven. And so watch out for the name of that, for this book that will be coming out in about 6 months with that title. If we can get any publisher to give us a deal and not think that the title of the book is so controversial. But again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to have this opportunity to be with you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brenda. This has been such an inspiration. And I hope for us with Carquinez Village that it's the beginning of a conversation that we all need to have. And we are all looking forward, I know, to doing this and to helping in the cause of social justice for all of us in the world. So thank you again so much, Brenda, for joining us. And we look forward to having more involvement with you. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.